Hello, my name is Coach Ray. I am running for Lee County Sheriff 2020. Tell you a little bit about myself. I am a Navy veteran. I did serve during the 9/11. I am from Florida. I'm married. I have 2 daughters. I did 21 years in law enforcement. I'm retired. I currently have a business where I'm doing life coaching and hypnosis. I have numerous certifications both in law enforcement and certifications in hypnosis and life coaching. As a life coach, I provide guidance to people, whether they want to change careers, obtain goals, or just have a happier life. They come to me for guidance, and that's what a life coach does. Helps people change their mental thinking patterns and helps them obtain goals and to set steps in attaining those goals. As sheriff, what I would do for Lee County is, first, I would have all deputies and corrections officers get certified as a life coach. And the reason for that is, me personally as a life coach, if I can help someone change their thinking patterns and to help them obtain goals, just imagine what the deputies and corrections officers could do with that. Basically, a deputy sheriff is a counselor now, and let me explain that. If a deputy goes to a domestic violence call and he's talking to the husband and the wife, giving them advice whether to take marriage counseling or anger management and so on, he's already counseling them. He's already giving them advice. So if we take that a step further and he is a certified life coach, he can explain certain steps on how to live a happier life, how to obtain goals, and so on. Let's say he arrests someone and the bad guy says, the reason I did it is I don't know anything else. All I know is to break in cars or break into houses and so on. So the deputy could give him advice on how to change those thinking patterns of I am a victim of life and I should take what I can to survive. So if we change those mental patterns, those thoughts, the criminal, the bad guy, the person that's breaking into houses and breaking into cars and stealing, if we change those beliefs and those thoughts, he can now become a more productive person in society, no longer wants to take from others but wants to be a giver. To me, that would be very powerful in lowering the crime rate. So if all the deputies are life coaches, they could have a direct impact on other people's lives and helping them changing their thinking patterns. So just imagine if the corrections officers were also certified as a life coach and they're in the jail with the inmates either 8 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours a day, and they're one-on-one with the inmates, and the inmates are basically a captive audience. So the corrections officer would have a direct impact, a direct influence on the inmates in the jail, where they would see them every day, talking to them about changing their lives and setting goals and becoming a better person and so on. So that would also lower the recidivism rate, where the same people is being arrested over and over. Because if you lower the recidivism rate, that would lower the crime rate. Also in the jail, I propose that we have a life skills, life coaching class. Now I understand that the Lee County Sheriff's Office already has some type of class in place, but it's only being provided to a percentage of the inmates. From what I understand, it's probably about 10% of the inmates that's in jail attend this class. So what about the other 90%? This is why the crime rate is not going down. It's because we're selectively helping a few people when we should be helping all people. And I believe that if we provide some type of counseling, some type of guidance to all the inmates in the jail, that would help them to change their thinking patterns in order to become a more productive citizen in society. I also propose that all the deputies and corrections officers get certified in persuasion and sales techniques. Now just think about that for a second. Everyone is a salesman. Every person alive is a salesman of some sort or another. Whether you have a belief, an idea, whether you want to go to a restaurant, whether you want to have somebody understand your point of view, you're selling yourself to someone. You're trying to persuade someone to see your point of view. That's what a salesman does. They're basically trained in persuasion techniques. Have you ever gone to a car lot and you're like, I don't want to buy a car today. I want to buy one eventually, maybe in the next couple weeks, in the next month I want to buy a car. But I just want to go to the car lot and look at a car. So as soon as you get to the car lot, you're walking to the car you want to go look at, here comes the salesman. And they're doing what they were trained to do. They start talking to you, building a rapport, finding commonalities between the two of you, so you guys become more friendly with each other. You start to understand each other and so on. Well, in about an hour and a half later, you're driving off the lot with a brand new car. The salesman didn't beat you up. The salesman didn't make you buy that car, but because of his training and his persuasion techniques and so on, he convinced you to buy this car. So just imagine if the deputies and corrections officers and even the SROs was certified as a life coach and as a salesman or trained in persuasion techniques. What would happen? The use of force would go down. If a deputy can convince someone to obey the law, to obey his orders, his commands, and to go to jail peacefully, he will no longer have to put his hands on him and wrestle him and fight him and tase him and so on, because he convinced him to go peacefully. And that's what he would be able to do if he knew how to do that through sales and persuasion techniques. Just imagine if the SROs, school resource officers, are trained in persuasion and life coaching skills. So when they encounter kids, either they're good kids or bad kids, just kids in general on a day-to-day basis while at school, they're helping them to see the future, to think about becoming more productive in the future, becoming a better person. They're helping them to understand that setting goals is important. So this type of training would be very beneficial and have a great impact even in the schools on the kids through the SROs. I also propose that in the jail, for the television, the inmates that watch television, I propose that all television shows be educational shows. Either shows of motivation, teaching them that even though you don't have everything you want right now, you can obtain it. Putting on shows where someone like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs started at the bottom, building broken computers from junk inside of a garage, and now becoming multimillionaires and billionaires. They started off at the bottom. These were the type of shows I would want to show on the television set for the inmates to watch. Something that would benefit them, something educational to inspire them to become better, productive citizens within the community. I also propose that we have a crime prevention committee. Now just imagine this. The crime prevention committee would meet every 3 months. They would give input on how to lower crime and how to avoid crime and so on. And these are the type of people I would want on the committee. Ex-criminals. Think about that. If someone spent 5, 10 years of his life breaking into cars, breaking into houses, and stealing, but suddenly one day he's like, you know, that's not the life for me. I want to be more productive. I'm tired of this cat and mouse game. I try to get away with, you know, hurting people and stealing people's stuff, and I'm just back in jail, and I just want to be a better person. Sometimes people do that. Sometimes there's good people that make bad choices, and I would want an ex-criminal, someone that turned their life around, is now being productive in the community. I would want them to be on the committee. Just think about that. If they spent 5, 10 years trying to manipulate the system, trying to manipulate and how to scam people out of money, and trying to figure out ways on how to break into your house and break into your car, they have that information in their head still. This information will be useful being compiled in this crime prevention committee. We will learn on what made people vulnerable to these crimes, on why certain cars and certain houses were targeted while others were not. That's because these criminals have this knowledge that we need. So we would want those ex-criminals on this committee. And also victims of crimes, whether it's a crime of burglary, rape, theft, battery, any type of crime, and the victim said, well, in their mind they're thinking, if I wouldn't have done this, this wouldn't have happened. If I wasn't at this place doing this thing and so on. So they have information that would be useful in this crime prevention committee. So therefore we will know what to look for, what to avoid in order to becoming victims of crimes. I would want child counselors, counselors that talk to victims of child abuse and molestations, and the parents talking to the counselors, and the kids talking to the counselors, and the counselors learn what made them vulnerable to these crimes. So these counselors of these children would be perfect on this committee. Also, state probation officers, that's their job. They deal with criminals every day, day to day. They're supervising them. They get to learn and communicate from these people on how they committed crimes, on what their mentality is, and so on. So I would want them on the committee. I would want judges. I've heard judges make comments that if the sheriff's office did this or if the police did that, we would lower crime in this way and that way. So now I'd want a judge on the committee, or judges on the committee, giving their input. State attorney. A seasoned state attorney knows this stuff too. Also a defense attorney. Let's think about a defense attorney that he defends criminal clients, and he's seasoned, 15, 20 years doing defense work. He don't have to talk about any particular client. He don't have to give a name of any client, of what any client did. But in his mind, over those years, he's heard from his clients talk about, well, I got away by doing this. Or if this person wouldn't have been in this position or doing this thing, I wouldn't have done that. So these defense attorneys have this information in their minds too. I would want a psychologist or a sociologist on there giving their input. So all these people are very valuable people, have very valuable information. I would also want someone from the child protection team or a DCF investigator, all these people that are interviewers of victims of crimes. I would want them on this committee. I would like to create something like a sheriff's youth ranch. And what this would entail is basically a place of a mentor type system. A place for kids to go and learn how to do analytical thinking and critical thinking. Learn how to plan for the future. Learn how to achieve goals. And becoming more self-confident and so on. So I think either a sheriff's youth ranch or a mentor system would be perfect for kids in this area to lower the crime rate and also to become more productive citizens for the society in the future. I also want to promote professionalism for the deputies. And one way to do that is to make sure they're all in physical shape. Right now, how it is with the sheriff's office, when you go to get a job there, you have to do an obstacle course. You pass the obstacle course, then you can go through the rest of the hiring process. So that one time, for the next 20 years, is all the time the deputy had to take any type of physical test or do any physical activity. So at the very beginning, the deputy worked out, got in shape, did the obstacle course, gets hired. Now for the next 20 years, he never has to work out again. That's how it is currently. I propose once a year, all deputies, everyone that is a sworn or corrections officer, is to take this obstacle course. I would give everyone that is currently working 6 months to be able to do this. And whoever does not pass, I don't want to fire anybody. I don't want to lay anybody off. I don't want anybody to be without work, but there would be an incentive for them to want to pass this. And this incentive is, if you don't pass it, you automatically lose $5,000 off your pay, you cannot get any future promotions, and you cannot get any future raises until you pass the obstacle course. Once you pass the obstacle course, then you can get your $5,000 back for the year, and you can still be considered for raises and promotions. That should be an incentive for everyone to stay in shape. I'm 46 years old, and I work out twice a day, and one of those days I have a tractor tire that weighs 224 pounds, and I flip it 100 times once a week. I work out on the elliptical system, and I do push-ups and sit-ups every morning, so I stay in shape, and I think everybody else should too. I work on mind, body, and spirit. I believe in the Trinity, that everybody should improve their mind, body, and spirit. I don't care what religion you are, you should improve yourself every day, mentally and physically. And that's what I do for myself, and I would expect all the deputies to do the same thing. I read books, numerous books all the time, and that's part of what I would want to instill within the deputies, that they should continue themselves mentally and physically. They would have to prove to me every year that they've read at least 2 self-help books, whether it's on life coaching or persuasion techniques, anything to do with psychology, anything that would help themselves and would be able to help other people. Also, I would like to implement a drug testing program to where every single employee within the sheriff's office, civilian, corrections, law enforcement, everyone, is to take a drug test every 6 months. Let me talk about the difference between what I propose and what other candidates would propose. Now, I was in law enforcement for 21 years. During that 21 years, I worked for 3 different sheriffs. Every sheriff's election, one of the main concerns or one of the main requests from the citizens is they wanted more deputies. There's this belief that if there's more cops on the road or more cops out in the community, the crime's going to go down. But ask yourself, over the past 25 years, has the crime gone down? Each time more deputies was added to the road. And I know the answer is no, it never went down. What would happen? The sheriff would hire more deputies, would go to the area that made the most complaint, said we want more patrol. One of 2 things would happen, maybe both. The first thing is, there's more deputies in that area. That means they're doing more traffic stops. Who gets pulled over? The same citizen that requested the deputy to be out there. That citizen gets a ticket. Now that citizen's complaining that there's too many deputies out there and he got a ticket. So that's one scenario. The other is, let's say at night, there are more deputies patrolling. But if somebody wants to break in your house, all they have to do is wait for the police car to drive by, and it's out of sight. Now the bad guy's hiding in the bushes, sees the patrol car drive by, now he breaks into your house or he breaks into your car. So having more deputies out did not really solve anything. What I propose, the only way to solve the problem of the high crime rate is this, changing this. And that's through what I've proposed, through teaching deputies to become life coaches. Until we can change the criminal mentality, the crime rate will not go down. You can add another 1,000 deputies to the sheriff's office. What would happen is this area might lower the crime for a little bit, but what they're going to do is they're going to go somewhere else. They're going to go, instead of doing crime in Cape Coral, they're going to go do crime in Fort Myers. Instead of doing crime in Fort Myers, they're going to go do crime in Lehigh. You're not lowering the crime rate. All you're doing is just shuffling it around. The only way to lower the crime rate is to change the mentality, the belief on why somebody thinks they should commit a crime. That's the only way to do it. So I understand a lot of candidates, they talk about they're going to add more deputies to the road. That's not going to solve anything. I've seen it over 21 years. Those candidates could have 30 years or 1,000 years of experience. It don't matter how much experience you have. If we continue electing the same mentality over and over, those candidates may have more years than me. I have 21, they may have 30, 40, 1,000 years. If their thinking is still the same as it has been for the last 25, 30 years, and they're going to continue to do the same thing they've done under previous sheriffs for the last 20, 25, 30 years, then nothing's going to change. The definition of insanity is what I've heard numerous times, is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. It's time we do something different. Electing the same people as sheriff, whether it's a different name or not, is still the same type of thinking. We continue to elect over and over the same type of people, you're going to get the same results. The two things you should consider when electing a sheriff is, one, is the sheriff going to be impartial? Is the sheriff going to enforce the law equally upon everyone, regardless of political position, money, power, race, sex? The sheriff should be completely impartial and enforce the law equally upon everyone. That should be the first concern. The second is, will the sheriff lower the crime rate? And I can tell you right now, everybody that knows me knows I'm a black and white kind of person. It's either this way or that way. It's either against the law or it's not against the law. So I do not waver in who I'm going to select on enforcing the law upon. I'm equal. Everyone is treated the same. So that should answer the first question. The second question, whether or not I'm going to lower the crime rate. Like I told you, the only way to lower the crime rate is to change this in people's thinking, to change their minds, their beliefs. That's the only way to lower the crime rate, not by adding more people. And I'm sure there's someone that said, well, if you don't say this, if I don't hear the sheriff say this or this candidate say this, I'm not going to elect them. You know what, as a coach, I don't care what kind of coach you are. I don't care if you're a football coach, baseball coach, life coach, nutrition coach, health coach, workout coach. A coach is someone that tells you how it is. A coach don't tell you what you want to hear. A coach tells you what you need to hear in order to make changes. If you go to a coach, or you're working for a coach or with a coach, that's because you know the coach has the information, has the motivation that you need in order to get things done. And that's what I do as a life coach. I evaluate people's circumstances and their situations, and I help them go into the right direction based on their talents, their abilities, their training, their experience, and so on. I tell them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. So if you didn't hear something, if you didn't hear me say, well, I'm going to address this issue or that issue or this, and if other candidates are doing that, then they're telling you what you want to hear, not what you need to hear. Again, my name is Coach Ray. I'm running for Lee County Sheriff 2020. Thank you.